Good morning, team. You can vote. We're so excited to have you here this morning, this Saturday, August 27th, 2022. We are ramping up for this midterm election and we're recording this. So if you would like to share it with anyone afterwards, go ahead, we'll send this out. A lot of our folks are in the field today. That's what I forget about late August, September, like Saturday mornings. All of our volunteers are out in the field. So I'm so glad that y'all are here and we've got a really exciting show for you today. And I'm going to share my screen. So I am Kate Fellman. I'm the Executive Director of You Can Vote. And welcome back to our monthly updates. We took a pause over the summer and now we're back. And we are in full gear in the field right now and excited to celebrate Women's Equality Month with you and Equality Day. So today we're going to have a special guest, Allison Riggs, Senior Voting Rights Attorney, Southern Coalition for Social Justice. She is going to tell us all about the upcoming judicial races and all of the things about what's on the ballot, including justices and how it impacts our lives in our state and our country. So really excited to hear from Allison. And then Maria Garcia Arteaga is going to provide a little update about our campus team, our fellows. And she, if you remember, she was our 2022 Baritan Fellow and has now come on as our campus coordinator for Wilmington. So we're excited to have Maria here and share with you. And then I'm going to go over just the quick election updates, what we're hearing, what we're seeing, what the timeline is of action, and what you can do to get involved. Plus, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. I know a lot of folks are nervous about everything that's going on. And so that's what we're here for, to answer your questions. So without further ado, I just want to celebrate Women's Equality Month or Equality Day. It's 102 years since some women, white women, got the right to vote. And I want to take a moment to just honor those who stood outside the White House for 8 hours a day, 6 days a week for 2.5 years in silence so that we could get our right to vote. So that happened 102 years ago, but a reminder that it was not all women. So white women were allowed to vote through the ratification of the 19th Amendment. But in 1952, Asian women were able to vote following the passage of the McCarran-Walter Act. And then in 1957, Native American women were guaranteed the right to vote in all 50 states. And it was until 1965, the Voting Rights Act, that Black and Latino women were granted the right to vote. And then others had to wait till 1975. So there are so many women that have pushed the voting rights forward. And I think women are going to save voting rights in this country again and again and again. And so I'm excited to be here with all of these wonderful women today and honoring the women who did the work before us and who will do it after us. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Allison because she has got a lot for us to cover. And she's got slides to share, and we are, so excited to have your genius here with us, Allison. So take it away.
Hey everyone. Thank you, Kate. That was a very kind introduction, and I'm so pleased to be with you sharing Women's Equality and talking about how we still face women. This is a moment to recognize women's inequality on this day that we celebrate women's equality or commemorate it. We've got midterms coming up and there's a lot of things on the ballot. I'm actually going to just talk to you about the state Supreme Court races, because I think there's a fear that you can't talk about what's on the ballot, especially around judicial races, in a C3 way. So I'm going to walk through with you how you can talk about it in a C3 way. And in my impression, it really starts from a lack of understanding of how the courts work. And in part because it's at the bottom of the ballot, right? There's a traditional lore or belief that only top of the ticket items motivate turnout. We don't believe that. We believe talking to voters about what's on the ballot and connecting it with their daily lives is what motivates turnout. It's not just candidates. It's not just what's at the top of the ballot. And there's a lot of things that the North Carolina Supreme Court does that affects our daily lives and is a great way to connect with voters and their immediate needs. So this PowerPoint is unbranded. It's actually, I've got a longer version of it. I'm happy to share with anyone to repurpose however they want. Or if anyone wants to follow up with me afterwards about how to talk more about judicial elections from a C3 perspective, I'm happy to do that. So let me get this party started here with the PowerPoint. Well, I might have to do it this way because I have another monitor connected. Let's see. Now I may be able to do it this way. Okay. So what do we need to know? We need to start with the basics of the court. We know that for education underfunding reasons, for reasons with the legislature micromanaging how teachers get to do their job, that civics education is falling short. And so a lot of our young folks haven't gotten the opportunity to learn about the judicial system and how it works. And so, you know, in different moments, in different spaces, we can fill in some of that civics education. But at core, what we have to talk about is how the court works, but also the cases the court decides and how those affect our daily lives. And I've gotten a lot of pushback. Allison, people don't want to hear about legal cases. I get it. I'm a lawyer and people don't want to hear my legalese, but trust me, my comms team has run through this to simplify it. And people can understand cases. They can understand what the bottom line is. And so I really push you, and any person, you don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a litigator in front of the North Carolina Supreme Court to talk about how important these cases are. We can point to people, so we can talk about cases that matter to us. That's a totally C3 activity. We can talk and point people to resources to find out more about justices, particularly in an even-handed way. And this is always important. We can always talk about facts from a C3 perspective. So we can talk about the facts of the cases and how the justices voted on the case without making any judgment besides giving voters the facts they need to make the determinations for themselves. As we all know, in a midterm election, turnout is the game, right? Getting folks registered, getting folks turned out, like that's the hard part. Midterms are just harder to get folks turned out. So when we are engaging in that GOTV work, and people are like, why should I vote? There's not a presidential election on the ballot. I honest to God believe that this is something that can be persuasive to voters about why they should turn out. So what folks maybe don't know about the North Carolina Supreme Court, it's voted upon statewide. So there's no districts. Everyone gets to vote on every justice whose seat is open. It does tend to appear towards the bottom of the ballot. So if your ballot's got columns, it may be on the right or towards the bottom. It'll generally be above local judicial races, but you know, that stuff in the middle can sometimes get lost. These used to be nonpartisan races. And I personally think they should be nonpartisan races, but they are partisan now. So folks should just know that justices are running as Democrats or Republicans or Green Party now, just as a good piece of fact. This is a big one that I don't think folks know. These are 8-year terms. So this is not like the state legislature where you're electing someone for 2 years. It's not like Congress where you're electing someone for 2 years or US Senate for 6 years. These are 8-year terms. So the people that we elect in November are going to be there for a while. The other thing I think people don't know and realize, and particularly because it's a very highly esteemed job being a North Carolina State Supreme Court justice, but we have a mandatory retirement age. Judges have to retire at the age of 72. And sometimes if you're voting for someone and thinking about the terms, you may want to know when they hit mandatory retirement age, because then the governor appoints a replacement who will then stand for election in the next year. A lot of this is in the weeds, but I just don't think a lot of people know about this. And I want you all to know about this so that you can discuss the elections with them. So there's a lot of information on this slide, but I think all of it, so it's just all factual. These are the current North Carolina Supreme Court justices. They run by seats. So a seat opens and then people run for it. The Chief Justice's seat is a special seat that gets run for separately. So for example, currently Chief Justice Newby, he was already on the Supreme Court, but he decided in 2020 that he wasn't going to stay in his current seat. He was going to run for the Chief Justice seat. There are 2 seats open this year. So 2 out of 7 represents a significant number of the people that will be on the court and affect the decisions that are being made. So the first seat is the one currently held by Associate Justice Robin Hudson. She's retiring at the end of the year. And the candidates for this seat are two judges from the Court of Appeals, Richard Dietz and Lucy Inman. And I have information where you can learn about them later in the slide. The other seat that's open is the one that's currently held by Associate Justice Sam Ervin. And the candidates running for this seat are Justice Ervin is running again for the seat, and his Republican opponent is Trey Allen. So, it's really important to talk about the fact that 2 out of 7 is a big deal. And the court could change a lot after this year. I'm not telling people who to vote for. It's just 2 out of 7 is a big number. And Justice Morgan is up for election next year. So we can see a lot of change in the near future on the court. And it's why it's important we vote this year. I work for the Southern Coalition for Social Justice. So we center race equity in all of our work. I've looked to a group called the Ohio Fair Courts Alliance for some of their messaging and work that they've done around fair courts. Fair courts are obviously courts that are fair and in balance, but a lot of people are like, I don't know what that fair and balanced and impartial, not imbalanced. But a lot of people are like, those are just words. I don't know what those mean. I think the Ohio Fair Courts Alliance has done a great job in talking about how systemic racial inequalities exist in our institutions, including in our courts. And so we need to make sure that our courts are not places that are perpetuating racial inequities, but are places where we're asking those who are running for office and who are accountable to us to be agents of change. And so what does having race equity on the North Carolina Supreme Court look like? We want a diverse bench with knowledgeable justices, and we want ones who represent North Carolinians' views and are accountable to the communities they serve. We want courts that treat the people who come in front of it with respect. We want them to decide the case on the merits, the facts, and the law, and are free from corrupting influences. And this is important. These justices can be agents for repairing harm and bringing healing for individuals and communities rather than compounding punishment and oppression. And I don't think we talk about courts enough that way, and that it is okay and it is fair to ask them to participate in bettering systems that are broken, that have excluded women of color from the ballot, that rig election districts based on who you vote for. We can ask for that kind of participation. So I just want to talk about really quickly a few cases that you might include in your GOTV work, talking to voters about the cases the North Carolina Supreme Court decides and how it affects their daily life. Just this year, in a case called Harper v. Moore, the court took up the issue of partisan gerrymandering. The federal courts have told us there's nothing we can do about partisan gerrymandering. Across the country, Democrats and Republicans alike gerrymander their districts to protect their positions in power, and so ensure that they get to pick their voters rather than voters getting to pick their representatives. And the North Carolina Supreme Court said, no, the North Carolina Constitution prohibits partisan gerrymandering. And it was on a 4-3 vote. They said that these 4 separate provisions of the state constitution require us the legislature to draw fair districts that allow the people to translate their votes into power. And that's where we believe all the power should flow from, is the people. But if people can't translate their votes into power, then we have leadership and government that's not responsive to the people. And from a racial equity perspective, it's important because partisanship is often a defense for racially discriminatory behavior. So in passing laws. So we see a lot of times legislatures saying, well, I'm not discriminating against Black folks, I'm discriminating against Democrats, right? And that is problematic, and why reining in partisan gerrymandering also advances race equity. Just a couple of weeks ago, the North Carolina Supreme Court issued another opinion that has important implications for voting rights and economic justice. As I'm sure you all know, for the last 12 years, we've been fighting gerrymandered legislatures with rigged districts and, where voters have not been able to translate their votes into power. And so the question was, could a illegally constituted, a gerrymandered legislature take action before it was replaced by a legitimately elected legislature? Could it take action to amend the Constitution and put a bunch of stuff on the ballot for North Carolina voters, a lot of times without information about what that would actually mean? And the North Carolina Supreme Court said, not always, maybe sometimes, but not always. And so they said that to this court, the trial court has to go back and look at whether the decisions made by that illegally constituted gerrymandered legislature in deciding to put on the ballot a voter ID requirement and a state income tax cap, a lower state income tax cap that would cut off funding to education and to important things that North Carolinians who are struggling every day need. They have to go and look at whether those decisions would help those people in power improperly stay in power improperly. And they set a really clear test for it. So they didn't say all the amendments automatically fall, but they said, look, a legislature, it's one thing for a gerrymandered legislature to pass sort of regular laws, but changing our Constitution is a really big deal. And if you'll all recall, North Carolina voters were asked to vote on a voter ID constitutional amendment without knowing any of the details, not knowing what IDs would be acceptable, not knowing anything about the exceptions. That's not a fair vote. People don't know what they're voting for. And so this was an important step forward to making sure that we have checks and balances on gerrymandered legislatures until we get the gerrymandering done and gone. If you care about the environment and environmental justice, I really, really encourage you to think about a couple of recent cases that have come from the North Carolina Supreme Court, because there are corporate interests out there that make it very hard for us to do the things that we need to do to correct the climate crisis. So one easy thing to do is, if you have the option, if you can afford it, if you can get the rebates, is to put solar panels on the top of your house. North Carolina law has protected the ability of North Carolinians to do that, but homeowners associations have continued to fight this. They have put these restrictions on solar panels and imposed fines on people who put solar panels up. And the North Carolina Supreme Court, again on a 4-3 vote, said that homeowners associations can't impose these rules that would have the effect of deterring and banning solar panels. So if we're going to come together and address the challenge, the climate crisis, and each do the little piece that we need a court that's going to stand up for, us taking those little steps. Another big environmental justice case, I know you all followed the coal ash spill, and there were a number of energy companies involved in the coal ash spill. And it's been a long fight over the last, 4 or 5 years about who's going to pay to clean up the coal ash spill, because it's affecting hugely our rural communities, predominantly communities of color, lower income communities. And what a lot of these utility companies wanted to do was say, well, all right, if you're going to make us pay to clean up the spill that we did, we're going to pass that cost off on the consumers, which means lower income folks in rural areas are still not living in safe areas, and now they have to bear part of the cost to pay. The Utilities Commission called them on that, the energy companies on that, and said, no, you have to pay your fair share. You can't dump this all on consumers. And on a 4-3 vote, the North Carolina Supreme Court upheld that. So this is about environmental justice, economic justice, and making sure that North Carolina lives in a clean state and doesn't always have to pay for it. So this slide here, I won't go over it, but this is a great slide of resources for you all to learn more about the candidates and what's on the ballot. There are way more resources, but this is always a great start. And I always provide every candidate's website. That's the right thing to do from a C3 perspective. And lastly, I just want to flag that some of you may know that there's a case going up to the US Supreme Court in December, where the legislative leaders here in North Carolina are saying that the North Carolina Supreme Court doesn't have the power to say that a congressional map that the legislature drew violates the North Carolina state constitution. And that's a pretty dramatic thing to say. We care about our constitution, it's important, and we need our courts to be able to enforce it. Why I want to, and I won't get into the theory of the case. You can learn more and join one of our Map Our Futures tour, where we really get into the nuts and bolts of the case. But the bottom line is this: if the state Supreme Courts weren't important, folks wouldn't be trying to take power away from them. So this entire Supreme Court case is about the fact that there are people who don't want a North Carolina state Supreme Court that will be protecting you, that will be protecting the voters that you talk to. And it's like when we know when they try and keep us from voting, it's because they know the power of the vote. It's the same thing with the state Supreme Court. And so I hope folks can make that connection for voters. I really appreciate your time. I'm happy to share this and answer any questions later.
Allison, thank you so much. That was very, very helpful, and I can see us using that in some of our conversations to help voters understand just their power, the power of their vote. we do have that. Next up, I want, and just FYI, folks, the chat is not working for participants. I don't know why, but when we get to, we can do Q&A. When we gets time to that, you can raise your hand. I can unmute you after we get done with the rest of the content, and we can let you talk. Okay, next up is Maria Garcia Ortega. Maria is from Johnston County, North Carolina, and first met You Can Vote when she was going to school at UNCW in Wilmington. And I'm excited for Maria to share a little bit about herself and what she's doing to help our next generation of Civic Fellows become leaders like Maria.
Yes, hello everyone. I apologize in advance. I'm currently dealing with COVID. But I love this work. I love You Can Vote and the opportunity to be here. So I'm really grateful for Kate for this. I met You Can Vote for the first time in 2020. I was walking down one of our main buildings at UNCW, and I came by a little orange tent, and I met Mia and Bob there at the time. And I will always say how much a small conversation can really change your life, because it really has changed my life. In the sense that I never knew where I would be as a 22 post-grad working with You Can Vote, and I would have never thought that in my life. But I'm so blessed to be able to be doing this. But a little bit about it is I became a part of the fellowship program a little bit before the pandemic hit, unfortunately. And so we pivoted online, but it was a great program. It was something that was very well structured, and during the time of the summer I really needed as a fellow, and it was really nice to learn about the things that I've always wanted to learn. I'm a first generation college student. I was the first in my family to also graduate from high school, and my parents coming to this country have always wanted to give me the benefits and the things that they could only dream about in their homeland. And so coming here, I knew that voting was important, but I didn't have that one person I could go to and ask those questions. I didn't have the experience that other kids had, or people in my age that their parents took them to the polls with them. Unfortunately, I did not have that experience. So I truly didn't know where to go. And I never really voted prior to being with You Can Vote, because again, I didn't have that. So I knew that in order to make a vote needed to be very educated. And so I didn't know where to start. And so I'm really thankful that I came across this little orange tent and little table, because it has changed my life. So since then, I have been a part of the fellowship program. I became a fellow, and then I became a lead fellow. And now I was also named the Barrington Fellow for this year in honor of Kathy Barrington. And now I'm working as a campus coordinator with You Can Vote now. But through that time, as a lead fellow, I have been able to mentor fellows my same age, and just get them geared up and get them motivated and come to me with any questions that they may have. It takes up time to get into a routine of things, but Mia has been an amazing support system. Sorry, my eye is like burning. A support system to me and everyone around here. I've been able to learn a lot more social skills, become a part of the community in Wilmington, as this has become my second home now. I love Johnston County, where my family is, but now Wilmington has come my home. I have some great opportunities with You Can Vote through the Wilmington community, as well as UNCW and hopefully Cape Fear Community College. But that really is a lot about who I am. But one of the other passions that I have, and Kate and everyone at You Can Vote has allowed me to really have a voice in, is help my Hispanic community. I'm really grounded in my roots, and I'm very blessed to be able to have that side from my parents. And overall, it's been something that I really want to teach youth my age, because I wish I would have voted when I was 18, but I didn't, because I knew that I needed to be an educated voter, and I wanted to be an educated voter. So therefore, I want to make sure that these resources that we have, that You Can Vote provides, that are nonpartisan, that really just are fact-based information about voting, really gear people to go out and vote, because our vote really does matter. And especially for Hispanic youth whose parents may not be able to vote, just like many of us. So I want to make sure that they're able to be educated about their vote and not forced to do something that they don't want to, but truly see the impact that their vote does, not only for them, but for their siblings, for their parents, for their cousins, for their godchildren. Because really where we are in times, it really does matter. It matters more than ever, I feel like, at times. And especially some of the events that I've been able to do, as one of the first ones I had with Bob here in Wilmington was a drive-through pick up food, and the majority of them were Hispanic, and I was able to speak to them in Spanish, and it just changes everything. It changes the way that they view us. It changes their faces when someone can speak their language. At least for me, it really impacts me to be able to see their face change and say, like, someone can see them. And overall, that's just one experience that I will never be able to forget, and the impact I hope that I'm making with them. But overall, I'm very grateful for that. And I'm excited for the many opportunities that You Can Vote has been able to really offer, but now more than ever, just really be involved in Wilmington and help people across the state, and geared up for an exciting year. And I'm just so thankful for You Can Vote.
Thank you, Maria. We are so grateful to have Maria on our team, and we're throwing her right in. We've got so many requests for Spanish speakers for presentations and webinars and podcasts. And I said, well, meet Maria. And she has been so great. I've been coaching her on prepping her for all these things, and she never says no, which is which is wonderful. She's always willing to help out in any way she can. So and Maria is helping get on board our 30 summer fall Civic Fellows who are in the field on campus. They are rocking and rolling. They are all doing events and making a difference on their campuses. We don't have a lot of them here because it's like the first week of school, and Saturday mornings is not the best time for new students to hop on a webinar. So, but you can see some of the pictures of our fellows out there registering hundreds of students every week across campuses. They're representing 19 campuses this year with our fellows, but they're supporting even more campuses and doing site visits to other places to get other students involved as well. So more about the fellows, you're going to be seeing a lot more about what they're doing on campus, and the NC Campus Challenge is coming up. We'll talk about that in a minute. So now I'm just going to do the quick little election news flash, and then we'll get down to Q&A. So our fridge cards are in. They're hot. Everyone's getting them out in the community. We're going through thousands and thousands of them a week. We can't keep them in the door. So people are really loving the new design, the new fridge cards, and they're really helping inform the conversation. As you can see on the backside, we have updated eligibility. It is so exciting that citizens who are not in jail or prison for a felony can now vote. We have expanded voting rights for 56,000 North Carolinians, and we've already registered hundreds of these folks who didn't know that they were eligible to vote, and we're helping end those misconceptions. It was really powerful. We were in the jail last Sunday. I went to the Greensboro jail, and someone was getting out the next day, but he was on post-release from prison in the jail, and he couldn't get registered with me in the jail, but the next day when he was getting out. So I gave him a registration form. I gave him an envelope of where to send the registration form. And he was excited. He was so excited. And lots of the folks we registered that day in the jail were ready to spread this information. They'd heard something and then wanted the facts and wanted to learn. So it is really, really excited that people are becoming aware that this is a justice election. There's judges, there's sheriffs, there's district attorneys on the ballot. So we are spreading the word, and our What's on the Ballot tool is really coveted, especially in places like detention centers and schools, because nobody breaks it down into these simple facts. Like Allison said, what do these folks do and how does it impact my life? That's what we need to say. and, you know, in a jail talking about sheriffs that are on the ballot this year, that really piques people's interest. Judges that you go before on the ballot, that really piques people's interest. District attorneys that decide what crimes to prosecute or if someone will be prosecuted and charged. That is a big motivator. And also all the school board elections, county commissioners, they make huge, important decisions in our lives. And when you talk about it in that way, folks are excited, they are engaged, and they then want to get registered to vote and get prepared. Another exciting thing that's coming up is our Fuel the Vote tour. Come out and see us in person. We're gonna kick it off in Durham on September 23rd at Tobacco Woods Brewing. And this is a reception. We'll have some light food. Everybody can get a beer and hear about the exciting things that we've got going on in the community and in the state. So you'll meet our local team. You get to meet fellow You Can Vote supporters and volunteers. And we're raising money for You Can Vote. This is expensive work to grow the leadership across the state, leaders like Maria, leaders like our regional directors who are handling dozens of events a week. So come on out and support us, youcanvote.org/fuel. And we also have tools for you to be able to spread the word on this. Let me introduce you to Amy real quick, if I can figure out how to work Zoom. Amy Campbell-Bogie is our new development director, and she is with us today. And I'm putting you, unmuted you, Amy, so you can introduce yourself and share anything else about Fuel the Vote.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. As Kate said, my name is Amy Campbell-Bogie. Just started this month with You Can Vote as development director, and I'm really excited to be part of this organization, especially in the lead up to the midterms this fall. We've got a lot of exciting stuff going on. So this Fuel the Vote tour is a great opportunity for us who are in the Durham office, the You Can Vote headquarters, to meet some of you all who are really doing the work on the ground in various locations around the state, and also for you all to connect with each other, with other volunteers and other supporters who are out there every week registering voters. So I do hope that you will come out. If you're in any of these cities, we hope to see you. You can also always get in touch with me. My email address is development@youcanvote.org. If you have any questions about these events or ideas for other ways that you all could get involved to support You Can Vote in the future.
Thank you, Amy. And I can't wait to see y'all out here. This is going to be fun. We're going to be ripping and roaring across the state from now until Election Day. And the one in Raleigh, when we close this all up, will be the last day of registration for You Can Vote, because the deadline is the next day. So that will be a really refreshing beverage on the October 13th. Some key dates coming up. September 9th, the 7th annual campus summit is at Elon, and we are so excited to be back in person this year. We've been a major part of the planning committee. And there's been we have all been working on increasing student turnout and increasing student turnout across North Carolina for 7 years with our partners. So we'll also launch the North Carolina 2022 Campus Challenge that day. We've got 31 colleges and universities participating in the Campus Challenge this year. And they will compete for awards such as most improvement in voter registration and turnout, and all sorts of other national awards, and in improving their action plans for turning out voters. And so we're serving as the boots on the ground and training aspect of this challenge to really give the campuses the tools, the plan, the materials, anything that they need to engage their students. And also critically is those campus voting templates for the voter registration form, because the way you register students on campus is different at every campus. So we're making sure that everybody is on the same page with how to empower students And we are going to have a massive turnout of young people this year. September 20th is National Voter Registration Day. Of course, every day is National Voter Registration Day with You Can Vote, but we put that on there because we are going to be out and about that day as well. So if you have an organization or anyone who wants to do something special, our schedule is booking up. So get your requests in ASAP, and it might not be on the 20th. We can do that week. September 29th is our next monthly update. So join us. We will have one of our other favorite lawyers, Caitlin Swain from Forward Justice, to talk about the new restoration of voting rights, and we'll do a deeper dive into what's on the ballot ahead of voting. October 14th is our registration deadline for regular registration. October 20th, early voting starts. November 5th, early voting ends. We are going to be doing the orange tents again, protecting voters and helping get out the vote at early voting. If you remember in 2020, we did this and it was very, very well received. We don't know what's coming up for elections. We don't know what we're going to face at the polls or what voters are going to face at the polls. So having a presence at student voting sites and voting sites in communities of color is going to be really important to protect and to get out the vote using same-day registration. So these are going to be orange tent field offices at early voting sites for all those 17 days. And of course, absentee ballot requests, get your requests in now. If you're going to vote by mail, get it in now. The deadline is technically November 1st, but you know, mail takes a while. So get those requests in, you know, the sooner the better. And then of course, general election day, polls are open 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Caitlin wanted me to make sure to share the facts about election security with y'all, so that we're not promoting and spreading election misinformation to make people feel even more nervous than they already do about the election. So the State Board of Elections has this great site, great link. I'll put it in the chat about our voting systems, and that there has been no evidence of a voting attack, a successful cyber attack in North Carolina. There's no internets, there's no modems. So be careful of rumors that make folks nervous, and check the facts before you spread either misinformation or disinformation on our elections. And then there is a trusted elections tour coming up as well, starting August 30th in Wake Forest. This is through the Carter Center. Former Mayor Charlotte Jennifer Roberts and Justice Bob Orr are going on tour and helping people, holding candidates to election principles about accepting the results. So you can learn more about this at the NC Trusted Elections Tour and attend one near you, or there is a virtual option for these town halls to try to build trust in our system and strengthen our bipartisan civil discourse. So finally, before I open it up to Q&A, if you haven't signed up for an event or a training, please do so. Please encourage others to do so. It's all hands on deck now. We are busy, we are booked. So we need support. Our Voting Rights Champions program, where you can order materials and fridge cards and training for your organization or nonprofit or business. We are up and running. We are requesting everyone sign up by September 15th with your order so we can have enough materials and get them to you in time. And of course, the Fuel the Vote tour. And if you want to get involved, you want to help spread the word about this tour, invite your friends, invite your family. Amy can give you email templates and all that good stuff. So without further ado, I would like to open it up for Q&A. So just raise your hand if you have a question, and one of us can answer it for you. Okay, Rebecca. Let's see, Rebecca. Hey, Rebecca, you can talk.
Good morning. Thank you, all three, for such an interesting presentation. I've learned a lot already. And I haven't been volunteering very long with y'all, but I have registered voters for a long time and through League of Women Voters mostly. What I'm wondering what all or any of you would suggest is when you're at the orange tent, at the little orange at the table, especially at events that are fairs,
Yep.
the cultural kinds of events, people aren't there necessarily for education. I'm kind of wondering about the best way to, in your experience, to abbreviate the wealth of information. I think the people on the call today, and obviously the three of you, we really appreciate all the detail because the complexity of it is what helps us understand it better.
Mhm.
But a person's walking across the parking lot or in a park, I just want to be a little more effective. And so given that we've talked about the North Carolina Supreme Court, about Spanish speakers, I've been to a couple events where there were people that obviously English was their second language. And I didn't want to scare them off by, giving them all this information. So I just like your input about how you think that goes in your experience and what you might suggest for me. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Rebecca. If you haven't attended the all-in-one workshop where we go over some of those practice about how to approach voters, that is always a great option. Practice and repetition makes better. But what I like to do is I start with the fridge card. I get a fridge card out front and center and say, I've got new rules for voting. I've got updated voter information for the 2022 election. We're voting in a few weeks. Like when you can catch their attention just quickly with one bit of information, early voting schedules. Do you know the new rules for voting? Ask them a question and then get that fridge card in their hand so they have a chance to look at something so they don't have to look you in the eye. I always find that helps lower the anxiety. And then you can start saying, yeah, I mean, we have this important stuff coming up. Are you registered at your current address or have you moved since you last voted? We want to make sure that you're up to date. And then you can start listening to their concerns and then pause and listen because it might take them a minute to just kind of think through, and then you can start responding to what they're putting out. Maybe they already know, like, yeah, I heard that this is a judicial election. I don't know about it though. And then you can respond with the appropriate amount of content. Maria, do you want to give any advice for if you're a non-Spanish speaker and you're encountering a Spanish speaker?
Yeah, so we have some fridge cards that are in Spanish. So if you believe that they do, or what we usually do on our table is that we have like the Spanish version and the English version. So in case somebody does come, because again, it's also hard to assume some people may not speak Spanish. And so we have those available for them. I'd also like to say that like trying to match the energy, it could be like, if it's like a fair, just like be personal, just like connect with them on something. Like if they walk by the table and they're like, like dancing, I don't know, maybe do a dance with them back, just try to match them and like invite them in that friendly way, but being personal then. And then for those that don't speak Spanish, I'd say, or don't speak English and you're not sure if they do speak Spanish or not, again, we do have those sides, like we have them in Spanish and English, so we have them on a table. So if they start reading the Spanish one, then take out the Spanish fridge card and just step them and just lead them and like really point to them what the most important is. And you could also give them one in English because there may be a child at the home that could speak English and could like know what information it is and walk them through it. So give them those two versions will be very important. That way they can follow through those as well.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, Rebecca, for that great question. Any other questions? Raise your hand and I'll take off. I'll let you talk. Rebecca, do you have another question?
I do. I have a follow-up,
Okay,
but don't let me interrupt someone else.
that's okay. Go ahead.
Given the information that Allison shared with us, I really appreciated the way she presented it as we're not all lawyers. We don't understand all the legalese. And so I think the few cases that you offered us to talk about in general, but I'm wondering if you have anything else to share about the point I think Kate was making about the lack of civic education. I'm really finding that on college campuses and just they just don't understand the different offices. So jumping to the North Carolina Supreme Court is likely something the people I'm encountering haven't thought about at all. So I'd like the idea of the cases, but I wondered if there was any sort of, well, like Kate had mentioned, the all-in-one workshop and how to approach things. Allison, I just wonder when you encounter all the folks that you probably do that, well, I don't mean to sound cruel, but are clueless about it. What's a great entry point for you that you find can bring them in? Thank you.
That's a great question. And like, I really toyed with putting in a slide about like the branches of government, right? So we have the governor, the executive branch, the legislature, the legislative branch, and the courts, the judicial branch. It's certainly a slide I can add in there. The North Carolina Supreme Court is later this week hearing a case called Leandro, which is about the money that we spend giving North Carolina students their constitutional right to a fair and adequate basic education, which I believe includes that civic education. You obviously can't go onto a college campus and be like, y'all got a crap education from the state kind of thing, but recognizing there are other cases, and maybe you don't get into the cases as much, but I do think one thing I like to do is go to meetings, or I accept every invitation to meetings that aren't even just civic engagement, GOTV, VR kinds of meetings. So, or like go to like, we have a community garden, right? And strike up conversations about people who obviously care about tending to our earth and taking care of it, and strike up a conversation about the ways in which government can either help or hurt our efforts. Like if you're picking up trash on the road, again, you know, these people obviously care about that issue. And you can talk about it and weave into it, you know, there's elections coming up, and did you know that the North Carolina Supreme Court can impact all of our efforts? We're out here hustling, doing work, picking up trash, planting things to clean our air. Did you know that the courts can make it harder or easier for our work to have an impact? And that doesn't necessarily like assume they have a full understanding of this, of how government works, but it connects. It's one of the ways in which we still have to do everything that y'all are doing. That you can vote, meet voters in public spaces where you don't know what the issues are that they care about, but you can also find places where you get a context clue of what the issue is that people care about. Reentry fairs, folks that are helping people get jobs, right? Those are places where we already know that folks have been directly impacted by the courts, and we can talk about some of the good things the courts have done or some of the bad things they could do, and how important it is to vote on that. So just my perspective on that. But obviously it's going to take all of us fighting to fund public education, talking about civic education, civil discourse. It's going to take all of us, and it's not going to be something we fix overnight.
Absolutely, Allison. It's a not overnight thing. And it's always just so important to meet voters where they are in terms of knowledge and not. And so, you know, asking little questions and just starting the conversation, and then, you know, having a chance to listen is always, you know, the best way we've found to do it. If anybody has one more question, raise your hand. Otherwise, we're going to close up the webinar. It is 11 o'clock. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us this Saturday morning. I know you got a lot of choices on how to spend your time, and thank you for spending your time with us. We look forward to seeing you out in the field and at the Fuel the Vote tour. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Allison. Thanks, Maria.
Thanks for having me.